Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to the 5th day of the training. As always, let's first do a recap of what we did yesterday. Yesterday was not really a very difficult day because we were mostly working on visuals and formatting. Today, we are going to work with Power Query, right? But in any case, let's do a recap. So we are on Power BI and 30th July. Here we go. Okay, so on day one of Power BI, we have covered Q&A. We have seen how the drill works. That would be the 4 arrows that we have. We have also seen how 2 charts can connect to each other. And we created a custom tooltip. We also worked on the scatter chart where we are looking at the profit and the sales. And we also have a play axis where we can see the change over time. Yesterday, we worked on the same calculation, which is profit margin, but we created different charts using it. To create the calculation, I went to the data view and we selected new measure. The same button is available here also. In report, we have new measure, right? It's the same thing, there's no difference. The measure that we have created is called profit margin, which looks like this. So we have to give it a name. Profit margin is equal to the sum of profit, which would mean that we have to select the entire table, which is sheet 1, and the name of the column in brackets, that is profit, divided by the sum of sales. And I showed you on Excel why we can't do this in Power Query, because we can't find the profit margin for every single row and find the average. That is not correct. For example, the profit margin for Maruti Suzuki is not the profit margin of every single car sold and the average of that. What we do is we look at the total profit, the total sales, and one divided by the other. How do we know that this is a measure? Because you have this calculator symbol, which tells us that this field did not come directly from your data. This is something that we have created ourselves. Then in the chart, we created a line and stack column chart. So this is what we call a combination chart, because you have 2 different y-axes. And we have kept the order date in the x-axis, the sales in the y-axis, and the profit margin in the line y-axis, right? After this, we have worked on the same chart, but this time we used conditional formatting. So we went to format, we selected columns, and we clicked on this FX button. And you can see that we have created a gradient, which is as per the profit margin, that ranges from the low to the high. The lowest value being a 10.16%, the highest being a 13.11. The problem is that while it looks great, it doesn't really tell you the degree. For example, these are both the same colors, this one and this one. While I know that these are big numbers, it's very hard for me to say which one is bigger than the other one, right? Like in this case, this is 13.1, this is 13.05. That is why in the next one, we created explicit categories, where we said that we would like to have 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 13, and 13 and above. We did the same thing. We went to format and columns and FX, but this time we created a rule, which is like a formula. And very simple, we said if the value is between 10 and 11%, this is the color, 11 and 12, 12 and 13, and 13, between 13% and 100%, it's a different color, like this. Unfortunately, you don't get the legend when you make this. Like in the previous example, we have a legend that comes automatically, but in this one, you don't get a legend. So you'll have to make these manually. These are just shapes and text boxes, like you do it on PowerPoint as well. Then we come to the next one. Here, something different. We created two separate charts, one with the sales, the other with the profit margin. And the change I've done on formatting is that I'm not starting on 0. If you notice, my y-axis starts at 0.1, 10%, right? Because the problem is, if you start at 0, then it looks like this. It's very hard for us to see the change, right? So 0.1 looks so much better like this. And what about this gray line? So this benchmark of 11.5%, we went to analytics and we created a constant line, which is the benchmark, and the value is 0.115. And then one small example I did was a Sparkline. In this, we created a matrix, which is like a pivot table on Excel. And we went to insert and we created a Sparkline, right? So if I show you the Sparkline here, it simply is like a small column chart, which is coming inside the cell, sum of sales and the month. So we are getting 12 different columns here. Okay. One other thing the Sparkline does is that, do you see this, everyone? If I hover my mouse, it also tells me what has been the increase. So it says the sales by month trended up, resulting in a 197% increase. So it's pretty smart. Okay, so first to tell me if you have any question, anyone, because today we will close this file. We are not working on this anymore. We will be working on a new file and we'll be working on Power Query. Okay. So any questions, anyone? All good? Okay. Let's close this. And today we'll be working on the model. Okay. Now, first, let me show you on Dropbox where this file is available. So we come to training, then on XIM, files, and we come to Power BI. And you notice there is a folder here called the model. I would request all of you to download the entire folder. The folder will have 3 files and 2 subfolders in it. And make sure to unzip it. For example, when you download the model, it will get downloaded as a zip file, but we don't want that. You will have to unzip it. So make sure that you have a folder that looks like this model with these 5 different things in it. Everyone, make sure you have this downloaded. If there's any confusion, do let me know. All good? Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the file and tell you what all is there. So in sales current, we have the data for the current year, which is 2014. In sales historical, we have the data for 3 years, the old data, which is 11, 12, 13. And then I have 3 additional files, category, discount, and people. So let me start from the historical one. Here we have 3 files with us. We have 11, 12, 13. Let me open one of them. So the data we have is a transactional data. almost the same as the one we worked on in the Power BI before. Little different, but if you look at the columns, we have 21 columns with us. We have the row ID, the order ID, the order date, the shipping mode, customer ID, customer name, the segment, the city, state, country, postal code, market, region. So all of these are the geographic details. Okay? After that, we have the product details. So we have the product ID, the subcategory, and the product name. And finally, the sales quantity, cost of goods sold, and shipping cost. Right? You will notice that there are a few things that are missing. Number one, we know the region, but we don't know the manager, like who's the manager or the region head for that particular region. We know the subcategory, but we don't know the parent. So we don't know the category. And we don't know the discount being offered. So on each transaction, there is a discount. And the discount is offered as per two things: the dispatch time and the value of the transaction. So for example, if the dispatch time is lesser, the discount is lesser. If the value of the transaction is higher, the discount is also higher, right? And obviously, once I get the sales minus discount, we will get the net sales. Net sales minus COGS, or the cost of goods sold, will give me the profit. So we will do all this, one by one. So don't worry if you did not understand everything. I'm just giving you a sense of the amount of data prep that would be required. Just like this, we have the data for 12 and 13 as well. And now we come to 2014, which is almost the same file. Now, where is the discount and where is the category and where is the name of the manager? In the category file, you notice that we have the list of 17 subcategories, and it tells us that these 4 are furniture, these 9 are office supplies, and these 4 are technology. In the discount file, it tells us that we are offering discount as per these slabs. If the order priority is low and the dispatch time is 1 day, then 0%. Order priority low, dispatch time 2 days, 0%, and so on and so on. Right? So the maximum discount that the business is offering is of 25% when the order priority is critical. That means the order transaction size is high, let's say about 25,000, and we are taking a lot of time to dispatch it, which is 7 days. And finally, we have the people file, where we have the parent region, but if you look very carefully, there is some problem. It says United States is the parent, which is okay. But within US, we have Central, South, East, and West, correct? But the way the data has been given to us doesn't look incorrect, but it's not a file on which we can immediately do an analysis. So you notice that Central : Anna, also the name is opposite. It should be, or rather swapped. The name should be Anna Andreda, not Andreda Anna. So we have to fix it, right? Yeah, so that's the problem, everyone. First, we have to combine 3 years of sales, 2011, 2012, 2013. Then we have to take the 2014 data and we have to combine the two data sets. Maybe when I'm combining 11, 12, 13 with 14, maybe the current file is a little different. Maybe the order of the columns is different, or maybe the spelling is different. We will have to check that. Once all the 4 years have been combined, 11, 12, 13, 14, there are some missing columns. So we have the category that is missing, we have the discount that is missing, and the people that is missing. But in the discount, we first have to find out what discount should be offered. Only after that, we can do some analysis. So I hope broadly you have understood the problem. So just think about it. Tell me if you have any questions on this. I'll just give you a minute or two in case you want to open the file, have a look at it, right? And then we'll work on it together. See, the only difference between those of you who don't have WorkX or haven't worked with data models and Excel a lot, the only difference between what we are doing right now and what you have to do in the corporate, whether you're in data analytics or not, if you're just a manager, the only difference is that the problem is the same, because this is the same example I teach to different corporate clients. And this is what I also consult them on. The only difference is that right now I'm helping you, telling you, explaining you, okay, this file has this file has this is the problem. We have to pull this data from here. This is the missing data. In a real world scenario, you will not even know what the issues are. So you will have to, explore and figure out what issues are there. And maybe you're trying to write a formula and you face an issue. So you know that, okay, I first have to clean the data, only then I can write a formula. But yeah, otherwise speaking, this is an excellent example. Literally the more or less the same thing we have been doing at PwC for many years now. Ever since we started doing Power Query at D, Shaw, Adani, I do the same, very same example for them. Okay. So just wait for one more minute in case there are any questions. I'm good, everyone. Okay. First things first, we will go to get data. Now you notice that these are the most common data sources that they have given you. So there are these 10, 11 data sources. We have Excel workbook, CSV, text. Dataverse is a Microsoft platform. SQL Server, all of you know. Analysis service is also SQL. Text, CSV, web, OData feed, and blank query. Now, what if you want something more than this? We go to more. And here you notice that we have about 100 different connectors available. For example, if I show you databases, we have Access, SQL, IBM, Oracle, MySQL, Sybase, Teradata, HANA, SAP BW, right? Amazon Redshift, Google BigQuery. I'm just telling you the big ones, Amazon Athena, right? Then you have other online services. So for example, you have Dynamics, SharePoint, Exchange, Salesforce, Google, Adobe Analytics, LinkedIn, GitHub, Zoho, right? So it's a very large list, and they keep on adding more and more because Power BI, even Tableau for that matter, are platforms where they have kept it an open platform. So if I am a service provider, if I'm a software provider and I want to create a connector for Power BI, I can just get it published on the store, right? So Microsoft will approve it, and then Microsoft Power BI can read the data from my service. For example, if I go to SQL Server, you notice that it just asks me for my server and database, and that's it. I'll be able to pick up the data from my server. So this is what we refer to by self-service BI. When we say we have self-service analytics or self-service business intelligence, what we mean to say is that 7, 8 years back, if I wanted to get some data from SQL Server, I can't do it. As a finance manager, I don't know how to go to SQL and run a query, right? Even if it's a very simple statement. So I will have to go to IT, go to MIS, request them to do it for me. So there's that extra layer. I have to explain them what I want. Unnecessary to and fro happens. Power BI is fantastic because it takes away all that complexity from this process. And it says that you want to get some data from SQL, that's it. Click on SQL, put in your details, and you can get the details. You can get the data, right? Okay. So I will go to get data, and we want to select a folder, right? I'm just muting. There's some noise coming from somewhere. Please unmute yourself whenever required. So I went to get data and I'm selecting folder. Please do it with me, everyone. Get data and folder, and then click on connect. right? Then we go to browse. My folder is on my desktop very conveniently. So I select XIMB and Power BI and model and historical. Please make sure you're selecting the correct folder, everyone. If you have the folder zipped, then you can't select sales historical. So make sure that the model is unzipped and don't select the entire model folder, only select sales historical. Right? Then okay and okay. Now the first thing that Power BI does is that it tells you how many files are there in that folder. So you can see that we have 3 files, 2011, 2012, 2013. At the bottom, there are 4 options that we have. We have combine and transform, combine and load. We have only load and only transform. So let me tell you what these are. Load will just load the data. That means, do you see these 3? It will just load the detail of the file name and where the file is, the path, nothing else, not the actual columns and the records, just the details of the file. You might say, but why is that important? Why would I just want to see the detail of a file? Maybe you do. Maybe you just want to see how many files are there in a folder. Transform will also load the data, but it will also open Power Query full, right? So if all of you remember, we had done the dispatch time calculation. So Power Transform data is what we call Power Query. So when I click on Transform, it directly takes me to the Power Query window. So basically, they are the same thing. There's no difference, or at least not much difference. I can load it and I can click on transform data, or I can click on transform data directly. But we don't want either of these. We are not selecting one file. We are selecting 3 files in a folder. Obviously, I want to combine them. So the option we want is called combine and transform. That means I would like Power Query to do all the hard work for me. I don't need to learn the 6-7 different steps in the formulas and have to write and type everything to be able to combine the data, right? What I want is very simple. I would just like to be able to click on 2-3 buttons and it should automatically combine it. That is why we click on combine and transform. And the final step is that it will ask us to select the sheet. Now you notice that I'm selecting the sheet called sales. There's only one sheet we have. And there is also an option called the sample file. So I will explain to you in another 5 minutes why we have something called the sample file. Just keep it in your mind. The sample file is an option for me to decide which one of these 3 should be the sample file. So 2011, 2012, 2013, or the first file in the folder, which is the default, right? So if I don't select anything, then it basically just says, fine, whichever is the first file in the folder, we are selecting that as the sample file. But I will tell you in 5 minutes why we have an option called sample file and when we should use it. Okay, so we go to OK. It will take about 5 seconds and a new window opens up. This is called the Power Query Editor, everyone. You might have to press Alt Tab because it opens at the back, right? And first make sure that all of you are on this window, then I'll explain to you what has happened. And how do you know that the files have been combined? If you look at the first column, it is a newly created column called source.name. And if I click on the drop down, it will only show you 2011, but the moment you click on load more, you notice it shows you 2011, 12, and 13. Right? So this is a confirmation that we have all the 3 files that have been combined one below the other. Right? All okay, everyone? I hope all of you are on the same page as me. Okay, now that we have combined these three, let us load it back to Power BI. So I can go to the close and apply button in the top left corner. And what it does is it basically combines the three files into a single file called sales historical and takes it back to Power BI. So now you notice that on the right side, we only have one single table with us called sales historical. So this is not 2011, it's 2011, 12, and 13. If at all there is any issue, if you were not able to do one of the steps, the screen sharing is enabled. Just ask me. I will stop my sharing and you guys can share your screen. All good? Okay. Now, imagine for some reason you want to go back to Power Query because you want to see what you did or you want to make some changes. At any point, if you want to go back to Power Query, you simply go to Transform Data and select Transform. And it will reopen Power Query for you, right? Like this. Okay. Now, for the next 4 to 5 minutes, I don't want you to do anything. I just want you to listen to me. Tell me, what do you think should be the steps for us to combine the file? Just logically, I just want a workflow. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to hear from you the formulas and all of that. Just tell me logically, if I want to combine files from a folder, what should we do? What should be the first thing that we do? Anyone? See, this is very important because you have to attempt these type of questions. If I'm on the interview panel, and I am for a lot of my clients, I'm not so concerned about do you know Power BI and how much experience you have. I'm more concerned about and curious about, is the process clear in your head? Because if the person can tell me, yes, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how I'll approach the problem, then I know they can do it on Python or Alteryx or Nime or Power Query or something else, right? So anyone, you can just unmute yourself and tell me. It's okay. It's not a correct or an incorrect answer. What do you think should be the process for us to combine the files from a folder? Okay, so then let me tell you. First, I'll go to the folder path, right? From the folder path, what we want to do is we want to take one sample, and from that one sample, we will take the sheet, because I don't know if there is 1 or 2 sheets, right? So I have to pick one. Maybe there are 10 sheets. So I have to say the folder path, take one of the files as sample, take one file as the sample, and then I have to take the sheet. Then I have to take the data from the sheet. But remember, so far I've only done it for the sample file. But the problem is that if I take the data from the Excel, how does Power BI know that the first row is the header? Because in Excel, we don't have a header, right? Think about it. Excel is not a database. Hence, whenever you're working on Excel, right? Obviously, the first row is where you will keep the headers. So you notice, obviously the first row will be the header. Now, how does Power BI know that the first row should actually become the header, right? So obviously it will say, make the first row as the header, right? Now, if the data is being pulled from Excel, the data types on Power BI are different to the data types on Excel. So I also have to define the data types for each column. So I will say define the data types for each column, or rather I would say detect the data types for each column. Now remember, all of these steps have only happened for one single sample file. Now comes my second part of the query. Again, I'll go to the folder path, and this time I'll create a list of all the files. But what if there are visible and hidden files in that folder? Obviously, I don't want to combine the hidden files, right? Because it might be a system file, some incorrect file. So I want to remove all hidden files, correct? So I remove all the hidden files. Now, what I will do is I will repeat 26 step. That means this step, right? So the sample that I created, so basically this part, right? Let's say 23 to 26. I'll repeat 23 to 26 steps for each file. Earlier, we had only done it for the sample. Now I want to do it for each of the file. And that's it. You get your result. Now, why am I explaining this? The reason is because after I explain it on Power Query, I'll also show you on Python how to do it. And you will say, oh, this is how similar it is. Right? Now, don't do anything. Power Query has already done the hard work for you. I just want to explain to you. The first thing is the parameter. The parameter is something Power Query creates to allow me as the user to select the sample file. So it's just saying, what is a sample file? Now, in the sample file, you notice that first I'm going to the folder. So it is saying folder.files. This is M language, by the way. Obviously, remember what I said? I have to go to the folder path. But once I've gone to the folder path, I also have to choose which one of these three I want as the sample, right? So how am I doing that? Look at the second step. I'm saying source 0 content. That means because the base item in Excel is 1, we don't have a 0 row. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In Power Query, it's a little bit like programming where the base item is 0. So if I have 5 names, the position will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm saying source 0 content. That means I'm basically taking the first file in that folder. Remember, we had chosen the first file as a sample file. So far, we have the sample file. Now we want the data from the sample. So I'll go to the transform option. Now, let me show you the steps. I'll go to advanced editor and look at the steps. The first step is, what is the source? Now we already know the source, which is our Excel file, which is coming from the parameter. But in the source, we don't want all the sheets. We just want one sheet. So what am I doing? I'm saying, let me take the sheet. Which sheet? It is a type of sheet. And what is the sheet called? It is called sales. But after we select the sheet, we also want to take the data from the sheet, right? That is why I'm writing data. But remember what I said? You also want to make the first row as the header, obviously, and you have to detect the data types. So that is why it says promoted header, so that all the values in the first row get promoted like this. Now, look at all the steps in the transform file option. Okay, watch carefully. In the source, what am I doing? I'm saying excel.workbook. That means I went to that folder and I picked one of the sample files. In the navigation, from my sample file, I selected a sheet. Which sheet? The sheet called sales, and I picked up all the data. Everything is there. But the problem is that the data type is not defined. So when I go to promoted headers, do you see what's happening? It is picking up all the columns, but only for 2011. Now, when I go to my final query, let's look at the step. Step number 1, folder.files. So it goes to the folder and picks up all the files, which is what I've written here. Go to the folder path. Next, I want to create a list of all the files. So in the second step, it says, actually in the first step itself, you have a list of all the files. In the second step, it says table.select rows not equal to true. That means if the file is hidden, then I don't want to pick it up. We just want to pick up the visible files. But where is the data? Because I want to after I remove all the hidden file, I want to repeat this entire process for 2011, 2012, and 2013, right? That is why if you look at the end, my last column is called folder path. So I'm creating a custom function called transform file. Now, where is this coming from? Look here. Remember, we had done this transform file for one file. Now I'm doing it for, check this out. I'm doing this for every single file. So this is the data for 2011. This is the data for 2012. This is the data for 2013. But how will I know that this is the source? So the column is called name, but it should be called source name, right? Otherwise, I don't know if this is the source or not. That is why it is renaming the column, table.rename columns, and it says 2011, 2012, 2013 is called source. Now, all the other data is meaningless. The content, date access, extension, date created, we don't need all this, right? We just need two columns, source.name and transform file. So I'm saying remove other column. I'm saying only select two columns. Which are the two columns? Source name and transform file. Then I'm saying, okay, now I want to expand because I want to expand the data, but every column is undefined. This is ABC123, 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 ABC123. Power BI doesn't care what was the format in Excel. Right now, it doesn't know what is the format. So obviously, we'll have to go one by one and define the format, which is what I've written here. Detect the data type. So each column, actually, this should come here. That is what it is doing. It is saying changed type. So it is automatically going to every single column and defining this is the number, this is text, this is a date, and so on and so forth. Right, everyone? So in a basic training on Power Query, even with corporate clients, I don't really explain all this. I don't tell them what is this and what is steps. I just tell them, click here, go to the folder, select the sample file, click on OK 2 times, and you get the result. But this is not a basic training. I want you guys to learn advanced Power Query as well. That is why I am telling you that, yes, Power Query will do everything for you. But you should know that this is how it works, because whenever you have a more difficult problem, columns are not the same, multiple sheets, multiple folders, spelling is different, data is not correct. What will you do in that case? Because then this perfect scenario will not work. Then you will have to learn how to modify these formulas. Like you can see here, this is the code that is generated. Okay, so you will need to learn the M language as well as an intermediate advanced level user. And remember, this is all not just a part of Power BI, but it is a part of Excel as well. Please see, even in Excel, I have the same steps: data, get data, from file, from folder. So basically, even if you say, so we don't want to even become a data analyst, it doesn't matter. Learning this is a prerequisite to appear for any job. You go to any company, and you guys will be applying for placement next year, right? Most of you. So trust me, every company is going to ask you, do you know Power Query or not, right? And fine, even if they don't, they're going to ask you in a couple of years, right? So why would you not want to be prepared for that, right? So I'm not teaching you something very unique and very niche, nothing like that. It's literally a part of Excel. If you want to even call yourself an advanced Excel user, an MBA student, you have to learn Power Query. The reason I'm saying this so strongly is because a lot of students feel I'm only telling you this because I like this topic and I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate also about Adobe Photoshop. I'm not asking you to learn Adobe Photoshop, right? My point is, this is a prerequisite. Any profile that you go to, which is anything to do with data, is going to ask you Excel at an advanced level. Advanced Excel is not advanced Excel unless you guys know how to work with Power Query, right? Perfect. So I'm going to stop talking now. I hope all of you have reached this point. Please ask me as many questions as you want. Take time, no hurry. Think about what we have done, what I've explained to you. Just wanted to show you something. This is called Tableau Prep. We will be working on Tableau in the last 2 days. We are not doing Tableau Prep. Tableau Prep is a companion tool to Tableau. It is basically Power Query, right? Same thing, they're competitors. Do you see what we're doing here? We are taking 4 files and we are appending it. Same thing that I just did, we are doing it in Tableau as well. Let me show you in Python. Watch. Python, combine Excel files from a folder. Even if you have never worked on Python before, I hope you'll be able to follow it. Please watch. What do we want to do? Merge Excel files in a folder using the glob module. There's a module called glob. So I have sales 1, I have sales 2, correct? Watch this. First, I'm importing my 2 libraries. One is pandas, the other is glob. Then I have to get the path, obviously. Now, from the path, I have to see how many files are there. So I'm saying file names is equal to glob.glob path plus asterisk.xls. Basically, because I can have multiple types of files in that folder, I have to define that it is in this path, but it could be any type of file, but only ending with XLSX, or actually only one type of file. Then what am I doing? I'm printing the file names because I want to check, right, how many files are there. Now I have to put an empty data frame for the new output. Basically, I want to create a new blank file where all the output can be given. So I'm creating a pandas data frame. Now I'm running a loop, which is I'm running a loop so that I go to every single file, take the data and put it one below the other. It's the same thing that we did here. Remember, when we said invoke custom function, what is it that we are doing here? Are we not running a loop? We're running a loop, right? Over every single file in that folder to pick up the data and put it one below the other. And finally, we are doing a pd.concat, which basically means we are concatenating the rows. And finally, we are printing the output. Or sorry, we are outputting it to Excel like this. Do you see how similar the process is? The reason I show it to people, and I'm showing it to you guys, is not to confuse you. And I'm sure you will agree that even if you have never worked on Python, this is quite exciting for a number of reasons. Number one, it tells you that, oh, the process is important, not the tool. If I know how to do it in Python and tomorrow you say, sir, can you do it on Alteryx or on some other tool? I can pick it up because in my head, the process is clear. It's just the syntax and the functions I need to learn. I can always do that. I can just go online and search for it. Also, for those of you who have never worked on Python, this is a great example for you to see how Python works, right? Of course, Python is all program, but so is Power Query. At the back end, Power Query is also these steps, right? Of course, Python is a more powerful programming language, but Power Query is not a programming language, but you get the idea, right? How similar the process is. Select a folder, go to the folder and pick all the files in that folder, but only of XLSX. Like we said, we only want visible file. Here we are saying only XLSX. Once we have done that, what are we doing next? Now we're running a loop to take the data from each file and put it one below the other. In this case, we are not defining data types and all that. If we wanted to, that would have become some additional steps as well, right? Cool. So I hope you like the example, right? And I hope it did not confuse you, but it gave you some clarity. Any questions? Anyone? Do you see this? This is Alteryx. We are basically doing the same thing here also. We are defining a folder path. We are defining the type of file we want. And we are essentially appending it, right? We have to select the sheet and we have to append it. The process is always the most important part. I'm not concerned if you say, sir, I forgot where to click. I forgot, what I have to modify. That's okay. If you can tell me that the process is that we go to the folder, take a sample file. From the sample file, we take the sheet, take the data, and we promote the headers. Then we again run a query. We go to the folder, pick up all the files, leave out the hidden file, take the visible files. I run a loop so that for every single file, I'm doing the same task. Go to the sheet, pick the data, transform, promote the header. And finally, after appending it, we want to change the data type. This is what is the answer I would want. Not to tell me what is it called and the keyword and the functions and all of that. That is not important. Right? Anything you would like to discuss with me? All good. I hope you're feeling comfortable. Okay. Let's close it. Now I want to repeat the same thing for sales current as well for 2014. So we already have historical with us. I'll repeat the same steps. Get data, folder, connect, browse. So we have XIM, Power BI, model, sales current. Click on OK. One more time, click on OK. Now you might be wondering, why are we combining from a folder when we only have one file? Like, can't we just select the file directly? The reason I put it in a folder is because tomorrow I might add another file, right? Or in fact, I will add another file. So it makes sense to not have to select every single file independently, but to put it in a folder. Why then have I not put all the 4 files in the same folder? You will see, because they're not the same format. The data structure is not the same because the historical data has been created by somebody else, current is by somebody else. So again, I'll combine and transform, same as we did before. And we select sales. Okay. It will again open Power Query editor for me. And now you notice we have 2 queries or 2 tables, right? So if you see here on the left side, we have 2 tables. One is historical, the other is current. Obviously, this is also coming 2 times, transform file, because they are separate, right? If you don't want to look at this, you can just minimize it so that it doesn't look very confusing, because you only have to work on the tables, not on the transform file option, right? Yeah, so just make sure all of you have done it. And can you all tell me, are the 2 files the same or not? Is my historical the same as current or not? Is there something in the data structure which is not the same? If you can spot it. There's no shortcut. You will have to do it manually, but let's see if you're able to spot it. Anyone, can you spot what is the problem in the data structure in both the files? It should be quite obvious. Anyone? Yeah, so that's one. So in the historical data, you will notice that order ID is only one single column, IN 2011-81826 with a hyphen in the middle. In the current file, you notice that we have the same data, but it has been split into three parts. But that's going to create a problem, right? Because when I try to combine the historical with the current, obviously there'll be an error because it is not the same. Also in the historical, you notice that my city, state, and country are three separate columns, which makes sense, right? So United States, Virginia, Alexandria. But in the current file, it happens to be in one single column, city, state, country, which is not a good thing because A, it is not matching with my historical. Also, why would I want to keep my city, state, and country in a single column? They should be separate, isn't it? So let's see what we do. Now, remember in Excel, we did concatenate and split and all of that. Left, right, flash fill. Here, it's very simple. If I want to join order ID part 1, so I'll select the column, press Control and click on order ID part 2, and press Control, click on order ID part 3. Basically, I'm selecting the three columns. Remember, you can't just click and drag. That works on Excel. Just to remind you, on Excel, if you want to select three columns, you can just hold and drag. For example, I can just say column I and drag it like this, correct? You can't do this in Power Query. You can't drag it because you're actually shifting the column in that case. What you should be doing is to select the first one, press Control and click on part 2 and part 3. So once the three columns are selected, obviously we want to merge it. So right click and we click on merge columns. Right? And then once we click on merge, what is the separator we want? We want the same separator or the delimiter that is there in the historical file, which is a dash. Now you can't see the dash here, but we can just go to custom and we can insert a dash. And we want to give the new column the same name as well. So we want to call it order ID. Please do this, everyone. Select the three columns, right click, merge, separator is custom, put a hyphen, and the new column name is order ID. All good. So when I click on OK, you notice that we only get a single column, and now it is matching with my historical data, order ID and order ID. Now, if you feel that you want to modify it, you want to keep a different delimiter or something, then I can just come here in the applied steps. If you want to delete the step, you can't press Ctrl Z. You can click on the delete button. Or if you want to modify it, you can just click on the gear icon and it will reopen the step, right? Now, remember the gear icon is not available for every single step. For example, in the change type, there is no gear. In the expanded, there is no gear. In the remove other column, there is a gear, right? So it depends on what type of operation it is, and that's not in your control. The more you work, the better you will understand how to do this. So we have the order ID. Now, in the case of my city, state, and country, my problem is sort of the opposite. In this, we don't want to combine it. It's already combined, which is not a good thing. We want to separate it. So I will simply right click and I'll go to split column by delimiter. Earlier we had done merge. Now we are doing split column by delimiter. Okay, now what is the delimiter? A lot of you would think it's a comma, but it's not a comma. Is it a space? It's not a space. It's a comma and a space, right? So I will go to my custom delimiter and I will put in a comma followed by a space. Remember, the space is also there. You don't need to change anything else. That's it. So right click, go to split column by delimiter, and the custom delimiter is called comma followed by a space, and click on OK. All good. So you notice that it will split it into three parts: city, state, country, city, state, country, city, state, country. Obviously, the name of the column is not correct. I can do that manually. Double click, call it city. Double click, let's call it state, and double click, and let's call this country, like this, right? City, state, and country. And if you look at the bottom, it says 22 columns, which is what we have in historical as well. We have 22 columns here. Basically, now my two data sets are matching perfectly, which is great because now I can append both of them, right? Remember, why could we not just select a folder which had all the 4 files? Because they were not the same data structure. Now see, if you say, but how do we even know if the data structure is the same or not? Many different ways. You do it manually. You can use Visual Basic. You use your experience. That's something you learn over a period of time. It's not like an objective test that, okay, you check these 15 things. There might be lots and lots of issues with data. And this is where basically you spend most of your time. Right? We will take a small break, but let's just finish one more thing before we do that. Now we have historical and current, but I want to combine both of them. 11, 12, 13, 14, all have to be one below the other. To do this, I will go to Append Queries. If you notice in the Home tab, we have Append Queries. If I click on the drop down, the second option is called Append Queries as New, because I want to create a third table, right? Append Queries will add to the current data set, but I don't want that. I don't want to tamper my existing files. I want to append it as a new third query. So we go to Append Queries as New. And it's not that you can only append two tables. You can append more than two as well. If you notice, I can append more than two as well. In this case, we only have two tables, which is my sales historical and sales current. That is exactly what it says. Concatenate rows from two tables into a single table. That's what we want, right? How did we do this? We went to Append Queries as New, and then we selected historical and current. In case you have more than two, you can select three or more tables as well. There's no limit on the number of tables that you select. Right? And the moment you click on OK, you will notice that a third table is created called append one. I'm just going to call it fact underscore sales. That is the convention that we follow. Fact is because it's a fact table underscore sales, right? And so cool. Watch this. 11, 12, 13, 14, all one below the other. And the best part is that tomorrow, if I go back to my folder and let us say I add 2050 or I change any row, or if I change a value, everything gets updated. Please watch. Imagine I am adding one more file called 2050. I'll just copy this one for now, right in front of you. If I go back and I click on refresh, 1 second is all it takes for 2015 to get added as well. How cool is that? Let me go back and remove this. Refresh once again, and now you notice we only have 11, 12, 13, 14, like this. Yeah, so this is where we'll pause for now. We'll take a break, come back, and then I'll tell you how to create some calculations. For example, we want to know the order priority. So as for the sales value, we want to categorize it into low, medium, high, critical. We also want to find the dispatch time, which is ship date minus order date. So I'll tell you how to do that. And then we'll also see how to combine the category file to merge the two tables, right? So yeah, what we've done so far is we connected to a folder, we selected the three files, we appended it, then we selected another folder, and now we have appended the two. I've also shown you the entire process of how it works here on Python, on Alteryx, right? And like I said, the process is important, not the tools. You can always learn the tool from anywhere. And then in the data cleaning, we saw that the data structure was not exactly the same. Hence, we had to first merge the three columns for order ID part 1, 2, 3, and then we had to split the column called city, state, country into three columns, city, state, and country. Once the data structure was exactly the same, 22, 22, we have managed to combine it. Once we are back, the first thing I will do is to tell you what do we do when the data structure is not the same. What if a column is missing? What if a column is extra? What if one of the column has a wrong spelling? What if the column is in a different order? What do you do in such cases? I'll explain to you once we are back. Right? I'll just wait for a minute in case there are any questions, and otherwise we'll take up. So please let me know, anyone, if you want to ask anything. Anything, anyone? All okay? Cool. Let's take a small break on that note. And then we will come back fresh and continue. Okay. So I think sharp 15 minutes. Let's come back at 55. Right? I might extend 5 or 10 minutes if required. Right. So please keep that in mind. As in not the break, the session. Right. We will be back at sharp 11:55. Okay. So we selected the historical folder. We combined the 3 files. We have basically not done anything. We have not written a formula or anything like that. It's just that I have explained to you how it works behind the scene, which is important to know to become an advanced user. Then in the current, right, in the sales current, you can see that we have again done the same things, but we had to clean the data. So I had to merge order ID part 1, part 2, part 3, which is here. And then we also had to take the city, state, and the country, and we had to split it into 3 columns, which is what we have done here: city, state, and country. Right. Then we went to append queries as new, and we appended the 2 tables into a single table, which is 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. And I've shown you that you can do this with multiple files as well. So the moment a file gets added to the folder, it gets updated automatically. So let me just share with you some more scenarios, which is a very realistic scenario in terms of what happens when the files have some issues with it, non-uniformity in it. Number 1, multiple files in a folder, and they all have the same columns, 3 columns, same order, same spelling. Works perfectly, right? 3 files, all the data is starting on A1 in every single file. It works. Even though I would recommend not to have the data in this way with these blank rows and columns, but it works, right? As you can see, it works perfectly. If the column order is incorrect, it still works because Power Query will automatically pick up sales and put it below the sales, and pick up category, put it below category. The order, everyone, does not matter because Power Query doesn't care about the order. It only cares about the heading. But it is very rigid about the sensitivity. So if I have a capital S and a small s, it will not work. So wherever I've said that it will work with a customized approach, basically I'm saying that it will not work by default. It will either give an error or it will work partly, but basically it won't work. So you will have to do it using a customized approach by manually making some changes. Column spelling not the same, obviously will not work. If there is a column missing, then it picks up, basically it just shows you a null value. Like in Excel, we have a blank cell. In Power Query, we don't have blank, but we have a null value. If the third file has an extra column in it, it will not show you null. It will actually not pick up the profit because file A is the sample. Now do you see why I told you that there is a reason for the sample file? In such a case, what do? We will choose file C as the sample file. Why? Because it has the complete list of columns in it. And that is why it will pick up all the 4 columns and show a null. If you pick up file A, then it will not pick up profit at all, right? If 2 columns have the same name, like we have a quantity and a quantity here, it will work, but it will just give it a sequence: quantity, quantity 1, quantity 2, quantity 3, like that. So it's not a bad output, even though it's recommended that in your raw file, in your Excel file, you should not have the same column heading. You should not have the same column heading more than once. If at all it happens, it will work. If there are 2 headers, obviously it doesn't work. You can only have 1 row with the headers in it. So this also requires a customized approach. If the sheet is hidden, file A has a visible sheet, file B has a visible sheet, and file C has a hidden sheet, it will work. It does not have a problem. if the sheet name is not the same, sheet A, sheet C, everything else is same order of columns, same spelling, it will not work because our query expects the sheet name to be the same, but there is a customized approach. If the file is hidden in the folder, like I told you, it will not pick up the hidden file, but you can pick it up. If you want, you can change the query and you can pick it up. If the sheet is protected, it will pick up the data. This is very confusing. A lot of people say it doesn't make sense. If I protect the sheet with a password in Excel, how will it be able to pick up the data? But it does, right? You can call it a security glitch or something like that. But like I said, that's just how it works. When you're working on Excel and you go to review and you select protect sheet, and I actually put in a password like 1234, the sheet is protected, right? I can't make changes to it, but Power BI will still be able to pick up the data, read the data from this sheet. But if you protect the entire workbook, you're good. Then it doesn't matter, right? Because it will give you an error, or I mean, it's a good thing. There's a safety issue here, so it does not pick up the protected file. If the folder has subfolders in it, it picks up everything, and you can choose which one you want, which one you don't want. If you have one file with multiple sheets, you can move that also, customized approach. If you have multiple workbooks and each workbook has multiple sheets, you can do that as well. Now, where do you find all these things? Like the solution to all these things? I've already created a YouTube video on this. Okay, 1 second, I just want to write down something. Okay. So you notice that in my Power BI playlist, I've actually explained the same 17 scenarios. Of course, there are many other scenarios possible as well, but look at this. So it's a 1 hour video that has 17 chapters in it, or rather 18 chapters in it, and explains how each one will work. You can click on the chapter link as well, the bookmark as well, and you have the GitHub link, which has all the files in it in case you want to practice. See, none of these are particularly difficult, but it just opens up your mind to the possibilities that you have in Power Query, right? Any questions? Anyone? See, now do you see why learning Power BI is not difficult? The visuals are very easy to work with, but the formatting which we did yesterday is very, very deep. And you can spend hours and hours working on it. I still continue to spend hours on it. Similarly with Power Query, the first time people look at it, they say, why is it difficult? Like, what could be the type of transformations I'm doing? But imagine just with one single task, which was to combine multiple files from a folder, you can see the number of scenarios that we have to work with, right? All good? All right. Let's go to close and apply. No, I'm sorry. I want to come back. We have to do a calculation as well. My bad. Okay. Now in my fact sales, we have the order date and the ship date. I want to find the dispatch time. We've already done it before on the first day of the Power BI training. Let's do it one more time. Add column and custom column. Everyone. Add column and then custom column. Once you do this, I can call the new column dispatch time, and this will be equal to my shipping date, double click, minus my order date, double click, like this. Ship date minus order date. So the moment I click on OK and I go to the right, we get the dispatch time. Do keep in mind that this is not a number right now. So if you load it back to Power BI, there will be certain errors that come in. So make sure to click on this icon, ABC123, which means that right now the column is undefined. Not a text, it is undefined, and we will change it to a whole number. Now it's a number. Do keep in mind the dispatch time can be 0 days as well, because sometimes we are dispatching on the same day as the order date placement. All right. Okay. Now let us calculate the order criticality or the order priority. There's no reason for me to decide these categories. It could be anything, but I'm just giving you an example of what we want. So I just want 4 categories. So we want low to be one moment. Okay. So I would like low to be 0 to 250. Then we want medium to be 250 to 500. Then we want high to be 500 to 2500. And we want critical to be 2500 plus, right? Like this. Now in Excel, if you all remember, we had done an if statement, right? If you remember the incentive plan calculation where we had different conditions, this time we have multiple results. So you can't really do an if in this directly. Like you can't just click on a button and do it. I'm sorry, you don't want to write the formula yourself, but you can click on a button and do it. So I will go to add column because we want to add a new column and we want to add a conditional column. Now you might ask me, why can't we just go to custom column and why can't we just write if and so on and so forth? Because the language is very different. This is not Excel. The way it works is not Excel at all. Hence, it is always better for you to use the inbuilt tools available. So I go to conditional column because we are creating a column as per a condition. It is called my order priority. And very simple, if my sales is less than 250, less than or equal to 250, then my result is low, add. If my sales is less than or equal to 500, then my result is medium. If my sales is less than or equal to 2500, then it is high. Otherwise, it is critical. So you should get a result like this. Okay? Let's convert this into a text as well. I'll just open it once again so that all of you can see it. So remember, we went to add column and conditional column, and then we are doing this. Add column and then conditional column. Right, everyone? And remember, please make sure to change the data type as well. So there should be a text value, correct? So now we are getting somewhere. We have our dispatch time and we have our order priority. So if all of you remember, in the discount file, this is what we wanted, right? For all these slabs, we wanted the order priority and the shipping time or the dispatch time. Now that we know the combination of both of these things, we can do something. We can do a lookup and get the result. But this is slightly more complex. So before I do this, let me do it with the category. So we have our file here, but I want to load the category file as well, because in my fact sales, I only have the subcategory right now, which is here. But that doesn't make sense, right? Because I need to have my category as well. Otherwise, how will I make a chart showing the three categories: furniture, technology, and office supplies? Hence, we will close the file and I'll load my third file right now, or rather my third time I'm loading. We have already loaded the historical data, the current data. Now we'll be loading the category. So I go to Excel workbook, right? And we will select desktop and XIMB and Power BI and model and the category file here. Obviously, there's only one sheet in it, but there are some issues with this data. You will notice that the heading is not coming correctly. But I told you in the previous example that the header gets promoted automatically, isn't it? But sometimes it doesn't work that way. In this example, you notice that because my first row is text and all the other rows are also text, Power Query cannot distinguish which one is a header and which one is the data. That is why it doesn't know what to do. And it thinks that category and subcategory are also a part of the data. Hence, it is not giving you the header. It is just making column 1 and column 2 as the header. The second problem that we have is that we have these null values here, which is not a big problem, but then I can't really do any analysis on this. I have to fill up the null values. Either you do this in Excel going back, or you can do it here as well. If I load the data, then it gets loaded directly, but I don't want that because I want to make changes to it, right? So I will go to transform data. By chance, if you accidentally click on load data, it doesn't matter, because even if you load the data incorrectly, you can always click on transform data again, right? So never worry that, oh my God, I loaded the data without cleaning it. Now what do I do? You can always go to transform data. Now again, you notice there are 4 tables that we have: historical, current, sales, and sheet 1. This is not very descriptive, so I'm going to call it dim because it's a dimension table. It doesn't have data about transaction. It only has a description. That is why we call it a dimension table. So dim underscore category. But the 2 problems have to be solved. Number 1, the heading is not correct. Now you might say, why can't we just double click and call it category and subcategory? Because you already have this row number 1 here, right? We want to shift it to the heading. We don't really want to type the heading manually. Also, these null values have to get filled up. Both the steps are very simple. First, we go to this option called first row as headers. It's an inbuilt command. It says promote the first row of this table into the column headers. That's all. You just click on it and you notice it will become the header. As simple as that. Remember, 2 steps are created. 1 step is for the promotion. After it gets promoted, it also changes the type automatically, which is very helpful, right? Because you don't have to define the data type manually every time you do an operation. Power Query does that for you automatically, right? And for the filling up of the null values, again, very simple. I will simply right click and select fill and down. Right? So please try these 2 things, everyone. Use first row as headers and fill down. Okay? 2 things. I'm just highlighting it for you. This is 1, and this is the second one. Right? Okay, hold on. First row is headers, and the other is fill down. All good? Now we want to check if the data is matching exactly or not. So if I go to sales, you will notice that my subcategory is not in uppercase. It is in a sentence case or a proper noun where the first letter is capitalized. But in the category, it's all in uppercase. It will not work. In Excel, it doesn't matter. In Excel, when you do a VLOOKUP, right, or other formulas as well, the case is usually not a problem, which is a good or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. Some people might say it's good that it doesn't make it very rigid in terms of the case, because even if the case is different, I'm able to write the formula. It also is a bad thing because what if you want it to be rigid? Otherwise people will put it in different cases. In any case, when you work on Power Query, the case is very, very important. Okay. Hence, I will have to make sure that this column and this column become the same way the subcategory is coming in sales. So you will notice that here I have a sentence case where each word first letter is capitalized. I want to do the same thing here as well. So very simple. Click on category, press Control, click on subcategory, right click, and there's an option called transform, and I will say capitalize each word. Like this. Right? Any questions, anyone? Very simple. Now, if you look at the data, this is the VLOOKUP problem, which we have already done in the Excel training. We want to search for the subcategory and we want to know the corresponding category. For example, the first transaction here is for chairs and second is supplies, third is phones. So what we do is we come here, we search for chairs, which is furniture, supplies is office supplies, and phones is technology, like this. But how do we do it? My master data is the sales table, what we have right now. And what we want to do is to pull the other table and merge it with this table. Right now we have 22 columns. I want to pick up the other table, which only has 2 columns, and add it, merge it with this one. So we'll first select sales because this is the master table, and I go to merge query. Now see the 2 ways of combining. Append is where you add one below the other, like 11, 12, 13, 14. Merge is where you're adding left and right. So I have 5 columns, I'm adding another 5, another 2, another 1, like this. So merge is horizontal, is adding vertical columns, and append is adding horizontal rows. Now, do I want to merge it as a new table or in the existing table? Both are okay, but then I don't really want to create a copy of the sales table. I'm happy to have these columns and add 2 more columns. So in append, we had created a new append, but in this one, we will just click on merge queries. Once I do that, it now asks me that, fine, Havish, you have the sales table and there are all these columns in it, but where do you want to pick up the other column from? So we want to pick it up from my category, like this. And which are the 2 columns that are matching? You will notice that we have subcategory here, and we also have subcategory here. We just have to select the 2. If you talk about it from a database point of view, like SQL, I would say that the subcategory that I have here is my foreign key, and this is my primary key. Why is this the primary? Because in the category, all the subcategories are mentioned only one unique time. But in the sales table, each subcategory is being sold multiple times, right? That is why it is the foreign key. And that's what we do. We are basically linking this with this. Right? So that's all you have to do, subcategory, subcategory. Of course, there are many other advanced options. I can change the join type. There are different types of joins available. I can use fuzzy matching. All of this is covered on my YouTube channel. So now I go to OK. And like I said, it is not just pulling in the category column. It is merging the entire table. But ask yourself, do we really need to merge the entire table? Because if I merge the entire table, it merges two more columns, which is category and subcategory, but I already have the subcategory, right? There is no point in me keeping the subcategory one more time. So I'm going to deselect everything. And I will say that I just want to select my category. I don't need to repeat the subcategory, and the result, everyone, is like this. This is nothing but a type of a VLOOKUP that you do on Excel, you're doing it here. Okay. I have a video on this as well, which is VLOOKUP versus merge versus related. Related we'll not be covering in this workshop, but I mean, if you want to, you can watch that video on YouTube. It's a very detailed, very nice video. Please try this, everyone. So don't worry if you don't remember all these steps in the beginning. I would be surprised if you do, because I remember when I started learning all this, it was very confusing. You know, there's so much happening. The interface is completely new. And I still vividly remember that in 2017, I had a lot of trouble because I would keep on forgetting where to go, where to click. And that's perfectly okay. But, you know, stakes are different. I was learning it at a time where I just wanted to learn it for the sake of it. Of course, I had to do trainings as well. But for you, you guys are sitting in 2022. These are super important. I mean, you have to learn these things and really fast. You know that I teach in other colleges as well, right? I'm doing some sessions with Inside IIM as well. So I just did my first session with Inside IIM today. It's an open batch for corporate professionals. So the point is that I'm teaching the same thing to them. I'm also teaching the same thing to my corporate clients. If you look at my calendar, I've literally done the same example. Look at the last few days. I did it with Inside IIM today. I'm doing it with you now. 2 days back, I did the same thing with Sterlite. Next month in August, I'll be doing the same with Collins, which is a aerospace defense company. I'll be doing the same example with Cvent on the 19th, which is a SaaS company. You know, so the point is that people are learning it. It's good that you guys are learning it now. So you sort of have not a head start, but you are ahead of quite a lot of people, but you can't just sit and relax because there's still a lot to cover. And you have to repeat it 4, 5, 10, 50 times, as many times as required till you really understand it. So don't be afraid or don't be shy of doing it multiple times. That's okay. It is difficult, which means that you have to practice harder and you have to practice more, right? And of course, you have the video with you, you have the recording with you, you also have the teachable courses. So everything is there with you. The ball is in your court. I'm always there to help whenever you have a query, even after the sessions are over. But do expect to give a lot of time learning these things, right? Perfect. So quick recap. First, we added a conditional column that was like this, right? Then we went to merge query, which is here. And in the merge query, we said that two columns have to be matched, our subcategory and our subcategory, like this. There are different types of joins available as well. And then we expanded it because we did not want the subcategory. We just wanted the category, right? Like this. Okay. Now I know I'm taking a little longer, but please allow me to take another 9 minutes because it's in continuation, right, of what we have already done. I will do a recap tomorrow. I will repeat the same topic if required, but just allow me and give me 10 more minutes to just close this topic. So I'm going to close and apply. Yeah, let's do one thing. You don't do it now. We'll do it in the morning. Just allow me to show it to you so that you at least know what I'm doing, and we'll do it together tomorrow. So don't need to do it now. We'll do it together, but just watch. I'm connecting to my Excel workbook and I'm taking my discount file as well. Right? Now, immediately you notice there are a lot of issues with the discount file. There are these blank rows. There's a blank row at the bottom. The data is not in the right shape. So I'll go to transform data. Now, immediately you notice that the first 3 rows have to be removed. Now, you can't just right click and delete it like you can do in Excel. That's not possible. So what am I doing? I will go to remove rows and remove top rows. How many top rows do we want to remove? The top 3. So I'll select 3 and the top 3 rows are removed. Also, the last row should be removed. So I'll say remove rows, remove bottom rows. How many bottom rows? Just the last one. So 1. Okay. Now I also want to promote my header. Remember, order priority is the heading. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days are the headings. So I will go to first 2 as headers. We've already done this. But this data is not in a tabular format. Like ideally, the data should be order priority. Then it should be the number of days and it should be the discount percentage. This is a pivot layout, but that is not a good thing because I can't analyze this. Because it is already a pivot data, I will right click on the first column and I will unpivot all the other columns. And you notice the data is like this. This is what we wanted. We wanted the order priority low, days 1, discount 0%. Order priority high, days 2, discount 0%. Order priority critical, days 5, discount 15%. So what you have learned here is how to remove the top rows, how to remove the bottom rows, and how to do an unpivot, right? This is just what I wanted to show you. Of course, we'll do it together tomorrow, right? Just wanted to give you a small preview of this. Right. And just a little bit of homework for today. I just want you to read about unpivot, right? Just unpivot, not specifically related to Power BI, just generally search for unpivot. Yeah, and just see how it works on SQL Server, on other tools, Tableau, Power BI, Excel, right? So just make sure to read a little bit about unpivoting. We'll be covering this tomorrow. Perfect. So good day. We started with Power Query. We have done merging 3 files, 2011, 2012, 2013. And then we did 2014. We appended the 2 after doing merge of 3 column order ID, split into 3 column, which is the city, state, and the country. Then we also did the fill down on the category. We changed from uppercase to a proper noun. Then we did a merge, which is like a VLOOKUP. We have also created a conditional column for the order priority, so which is 0 to 215 to 500, 2500, and so on. And we've also written a formula, which is ship date minus order date, which essentially gives you the dispatch time. Tomorrow we will continue and we will calculate the discount and the profit, things like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm done from my side for today. Any questions you have, you can ask me. Tomorrow we'll spend about maybe 30 minutes on Power Query, and then we will go to DAX, which is calculations. right? Anything else, anyone? Nothing comes without hard work. After today's session is over, I have a little bit of reading to do. So I am doing this course on advanced DAX, right? And I watched 62 out of 157 lectures in the last 1.5 months. I really have to catch up. So that's the point, right? I mean, I am also going to spend time doing this on a Saturday night. So here's the thing, right? I mean, if data is important to you, if you're looking at a career path that has a lot of data in it, you have to rapidly learn these things, right? I'm not saying you have to learn it forever, but at least be very, very diligent now, spend more time now so that you can relax and reduce the pace later. Don't push everything towards the end when placement season is staring down your neck and down your throat. Um, uh, Data analytics is an area where you have to study a lot, right? And you have to constantly keep on studying. Otherwise, you basically become obsolete. Perfect. Great. I think that's all from my side. I will see all of you tomorrow at the same time at 10:30.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for your great session.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a session tomorrow.